Welcome to another episode of the All Tens Podcast. I'm your co-host, Josh West. With me, as always, Clay Harris. And today, Clay, we're continuing our series about compensation. And specifically, we want to focus on sales commission structures. Let's get into it, Clay.
Oof. Sales commission structures. Pay me. Show me the money.
That's right.
Cuba Gooding Jr., yeah. Well, I think the reason, so we've been talking about compensation a lot. And I think that one of the reasons we wanted to hit on this is because, man, there's so many ways to do it. Mm-hmm. And incentive compensation is a great way to drive behavior in the organization. And I think that, one thing I would just urge our listeners to think about is like, how are they aligning the outcomes that they want with the incentive, specifically sales commission that they're giving out to the team? And I'm going to just give you a quick example. I have a friend who works for an IT services company, and their commission structure incentivizes big equipment sales, but everything else that they talk about is growing monthly recurring revenue. But if you line them up, what they're commissioning and what they're going for, they spend a lot of time selling stuff that doesn't recur. So anyway, just like as an example of why we wanted to talk about this, like, man, it's such an opportunity. And when you get it wrong, it can really lead people the wrong way, So anyway, that's why we kind of thought about this as a topic. Where do you want to go first?
I mean, you're not kidding, Clay. And the reason why we have to have this as a specific episode, and we've covered off on the basics and some philosophy getting up to this, but sales is always just kind of a different animal. And this episode of the All Tens Podcast is powered by Streti, the EOS software people love. With EOS Pure Tools, plus additional collaboration and communication tools, you can run on EOS and execute on daily work all in one place. Learn more at Streti.com. That's STRETY.com. And I'll start our listeners out with, before we get into different structures, seek to keep it simple. We talk about the 5 leadership abilities inside of EOS. The first one is to simplify, and this aspect of your business is no different. Keep it simple. If the members of the sales team can't explain the commission structure inside of 30 seconds, it's probably too complicated.
Period. No notes. Keep it simple. If people don't understand how they're getting paid, they don't know what to do.
Yep.
Right? Keep it simple.
The complexity is probably inevitably going to introduce some conflicts of interest, even as you're saying right now, like we've got things misaligned. And if we make it difficult, we're going to make it difficult for sales leadership. We're going to make it difficult for people inside of finance to reconcile the commissions. Just keep it simple.
Can I give you an example from my own life? My own past life. I thought we had a pretty simple commission structure. It was based on 2 variables: how much do people pay us per month, and what was the term of the agreement, right? Mm-hmm. And so pretty simple, right? But we offered 12, 24, 36-month agreements. And so it was introducing this conflict for a salesperson's head. Like, I know I'm going to get paid like incrementally more on a longer term agreement, but I'm actually easier to sell a shorter term agreement. And they kind of had to do a bunch of thinking, and they were going into those customer conversations kind of doing a balancing act. So even though, like, do I sell the thing that's best for everybody or the thing that's easy, and even though that was simple, it still could have been simpler. And in fact, we made it simpler. So we just made the commission. We're going to base every commission based on a presumed 36-month engagement. I actually don't care if you sign them up for 12 or 24 or 36 months. I'm going to pay you like it's 36 because we're going to retain them. Mm-hmm. So you're not tripping over your own shoelace trying to get a deal done based on how you're going to get paid. You're signing the right thing for them. And then I put the burden on our finance people, the people who aren't out there selling, to say like, hey, listen, if they leave after 18 months, just do a little chargeback. Right. But like that simplification moved a bunch of the like work and head stuff that happens on the sales team out of their head, put the burden on an admin staff and let them just go sell. So even though it was already simple, even if your commission structure with your team is already simple, I bet there's something that you could find to make it even a little bit more simpler. I'm looking for 1%, 2%, 3% improvements in speed. Put that across your whole sales team. That's big impact. So simplification, easy to say, hard to do, but I promise it's available. Anyway, yeah.
Couldn't agree more. It is like I can't stress it enough. Keep it simple. So if we want to dive into some of the more common structures that people employ, the first one is we've got base salary, and then we're just going to pay you a simple linear commission structure. So for every deal that you close, it's X percentage of that revenue. And if you have a team that's large enough and you have BDRs or SDRs, if you will, that are creating those opportunities that then get passed to account executives that close those deals, same thing there, where they get paid per opportunity created. And that's great. That's pretty simple and straightforward. What you're incenting there is more of volume, particularly if you're paying it off of revenue and we're not paying off of gross profit, or we're not trying to, as you alluded to, looking at the total value of the opportunity. The one thing I'll say there, though, that structure lacks is the leverage that you get from a tiered commission structure and really pushing people beyond that. Is this what you see most of your clients work with? Just this base plus a linear commission?
When you do something, you get paid for it. That's what you mean by linear, right?
Yeah. And it's the same no matter how much you do. A tiered commission structure adds leverage. And that's my favorite personally, because let's break this down a bit. Let's say you have a BDR, and their job is to, in an outbound sense, generate opportunities. So you say, okay, I'm going to pay you $50,000, $60,000 a year base. And then if your target is, call it 15 opportunities per quarter, then 0 through 5, I'm not going to pay you anything additional for those. Then we get 6 through 10, and I'm going to pay you, call it $1,000 per opportunity there. And then 10 to 15 and beyond, I'm going to pay you $3,000 for every one of those opportunities. And so we incent those people to continue going forward. Now, when you look at it and you do the math, at some point, someone's going to say, wow, like we're paying a lot out here for someone who's just really killing it. But I promise you that if you go back and you do the math and you think of the total compensation that it is to employ that person, base salary, and then how all those bonuses pay out, the person who's crushing it in that role, when you look across what that looks like annually, and then you calculate the price per opportunity, you're actually paying less per opportunity than someone who's just kind of dragging their feet and only giving you about 4 to 5 opportunities per quarter. And what that does is either that person is going to see the person who's making 3 times as much as they are, and they're going to push toward that, or they're likely going to opt out. So it's okay for us to pay someone a lot more because we're actually getting a lot more for that, and we're ultimately paying less per opportunity. I like the tiered commission structure. And frankly, in my experience, the personalities and the motivations of salespeople tend to respond very well to that.
Yeah, I think that makes sense to me, and I think there's a couple of things that are just floating around in my head, but I guess I want to like drop back on 2 kind of maybe more foundational things. One of them is the idea that when you're building this idea out, right, when you're kind of figuring out the approach you're going to take to compensate or incentive comp for salespeople, commissions, go back a couple episodes where we were talking about kind of comp philosophy, right? You kind of want to understand what your target is. Like, what do you, like, when you think about a salesperson organization, to continue using your example, if the goal is 15 opportunities a year in that position, right? What would on target earnings be for the person who's hitting the target. Whether you do it linearly or in a tiered model, you want to make sure that you're really thoughtful and intentional about what the comp is going to be for the person that gets to their goal. The thing that I hear you saying that you really love about, and so that if you go back to that philosophy, are we going to like lead the market for this kind of company in this area for this kind of company, that kind of stuff? Are we going to be right around where the market is? Because whether you tiered or linear kind of commission models, if you want to pay $100,000 if someone's on target, build the program to pay them where you think you fit into the marketplace where you're employing them. I hope that makes sense, right? And what I'm hearing you say is if someone is consistently beating their target, you want their earning potential to ramp up. Cool. What I'm also hearing you say is that if they don't hit target, they aren't meeting their on-target earnings goal. Also good. Just fundamentally, whether you do a linear or tiered or whatever you want to call those models, get there first. We work with so many teams who kind of, they just throw it in the wind.
They wing it.
They're winging it. So like, I just want, like, just like with everything else we do in EOS, I want you to be thoughtful first before you just start throwing shit against the wall. Because you're going to either underpay or overpay. You're not intentional. You never know. It's you're just reaching around in the dark. So whichever model you choose one. Like, and do it intentionally, not just like hope that it works because your buddy told you it worked at his company. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And the other thing about when you just have linear versus that tiered structure is you could get people who just like to coast because the incentive isn't there. So I can kind of fake like I'm doing it. I can get a little lucky. I can fall backwards into, I'm getting my base pay and I generate a few opportunities. And if the person who's crushing it is still only getting paid in that linear fashion, it's almost as if we're incenting people to do less because there's not that much more. If I told you, Clay, you could kind of smile and dial for an hour today and make $65,000 a year, or you can hustle and you can have people hang up in your face for 8 hours a day. And by the time you get to the end of the year, you're only going to make about 80 grand. What are you going to do?
Right.
Versus if you want to put in all that work and you can make 150 or so, well, now I've made the hustle worth it. And then watch that culture inside of that sales pit change as well.
I want to take it out of the like kind of motivation thing and into real world for our listeners who are like, okay, and right. And so I'll just go back to my example. When I had a sales team selling IT services, it was linear. Every deal had the same commission. But we introduced the idea that you're talking about by doing the same thing. If you hit, we were doing MRR. So it was like, if you hit $20,000 of MRR in the quarter, I'm going to give you a 50% bonus on top. If you hit $40,000 of MRR, you get a 100% bonus or whatever it is, right? So there's still some of that tiered levering happening, right? Mm-hmm. As they go up and get higher and higher performance. Whatever the mechanism is, just make sure it's clear. And as you said, make sure it's, as we started the podcast out by saying, like, keep it as simple as you can while still motivating the right outcomes, right? And
couldn't agree more. And I think that my nugget for the listeners this time is about that. It's about that alignment. And whenever you have done the math, work backwards, and you've got a commission structure you want to present to the team, here's the question you need to ask yourself. When I put myself in the shoes of the sales team members and think selfishly for myself, working within this structure, if I optimized my paycheck, would that precipitate the results and build the business that we want to build, getting the types of customers and deals that we want? If the answer to that question is yes, you've got a great plan. If the answer to that question is no, then you've got a conflict of interest. There's misalignment between the goals of the organization and the goals of the individuals working within that system, and you need to get it back into alignment.
Period. I've said that 3 times because you're just throwing darts today. But I'm not sure that I have a nugget other than to add on to that, which is like, look at your VTO. You have a document in front of you if you're running on EOS that says, here are the most important numbers for the quarter, for the year, for the next 3 years, for the next 10 years. That'll give you real good insight into how you want to align incentive payments to your team. That's one nugget. The other one is, if you have this culture where like everybody's kind of in charge of selling and no one's kind of comp is variable at all, just hold up the mirror real quick and say like, how am I recognizing and rewarding effort for bringing in new business? If we're talking a lot about to people who have a system already and how to make it a little bit better, I also want to talk to the people who don't really have a system yet. Maybe they're thinking about hiring their first salesperson.
Mm-hmm.
Come up with a good plan that does all the things that Josh has said, aligns with your business goals, and then be intentional first. Be intentional first. Is that the episode, Josh? Did we hit all the things we wanted to hit?
I think we did. And if we missed something, listeners, or if you've got questions or other comments, drop them down. We want to hear from you. And if we need to, there'll be another sales commission compensation episode. But until then, take them home, Clay.
That's right. Thanks for listening to today's podcast. My name is Clay. His name is Josh. We're EOS implementers, and we love talking about businesses and how to make them get a little bit better every day. We hope that you'll catch us on YouTube and Spotify or Apple Podcasts and subscribe. We would love for you to subscribe. We drop a new episode every week. Until next week, then, hope you have a good one. Bye, everybody.
Bye, Clay.